March 1947. Death row at Sapporo prison. Guards find Yoshie Shiratori's cell empty, except for a gaping hole in the floor and a ceramic soup bowl covered in blood. For 2 months, this condemned man had been scraping through solid wood, digging a tunnel below their feet while they laughed about the broken prisoner who barely moved. This wasn't his first escape. It was his fourth. In 1936, he picked a lock with wire and vanished through a skylight. In 1942, he used his own spit to rot wooden beams and escaped during a typhoon. In 1944, he dislocated every joint in his body to squeeze through a 4-inch food slot in minus 30-degree weather. Each time they caught him, they sent him somewhere worse. Each time, he escaped using something stupidly ordinary: bath wire, saliva, miso soup, and a bowl. But here's what makes no sense. After humiliating Japan's entire prison system 4 times, he surrendered to a random beat cop for 1 cigarette. Why did he give himself up? And how did a soup bowl defeat death row? Aomori Prison, June 15, 1936. Yoshie Shiratori slides a copper wire into his cell lock. He's practiced 200 times on a soap carving of the lock mechanism. Then click, the bolt retracts. He is 29 years old, 3 years into a life sentence for allegedly murdering a farmer named Tanaka during a robbery. Yoshie has calculated his odds. Die in prison for a crime he maintains he didn't commit, or risk execution trying to escape. The math is simple. He arranges 4 wooden floorboards under his blanket, creating the silhouette of a sleeping man. In the pre-dawn dimness, it'll fool the guards for their 5 a.m. check, maybe their 6 a.m. check too. Every minute counts. Yoshie knows the patrol schedule better than the guards themselves. Officer Yamamoto takes 47 seconds to walk the north corridor. Officer Sato always skips the 3rd floor check when it rains. And right now, at 4:33 a.m., all 6 guards are in the break room arguing about baseball. The Skylight sits 18 feet above the floor, a 2-foot square of freedom that maintenance forgot to bar properly. Yoshie discovered it during his prison job cleaning the rafters. The foreman never noticed him testing each beam's weight capacity. Now he climbs, fingers finding holds where concrete meets wood, muscles burning from 3 months of secret training in his cell. Pull-ups on the door frame, plank holds against the wall. His fisherman father once made him hang from boat rigging for 10 minutes straight as punishment. 20 years later, that childhood torture saves his life. The Skylight's wooden frame splits with 1 sharp pull. Yoshie hauls himself through, ribcage scraping against splintered wood, and emerges on the roof as Aomori City sleeps below. No searchlights. The prison only installed those after his escape, a fact that still makes guards curse his name. He drops 20 feet into the vegetable garden, ankles exploding with pain, then limps through the hole he'd cut in the fence during yesterday's work detail. 72 hours of freedom. That's all Yoshie gets before hunger drives him to raid Aomori Hospital's supply room. Police officer Tanaka catches him stuffing bandages and rice balls into a sack. The tackle breaks 2 of Yoshie's ribs. Back in court, Judge Watanabe adds 20 years for escape and theft, then leans forward. You embarrass the empire. Akita Prison will teach you humility. Yoshie stares back, memorizing the judge's face. He doesn't know it yet, but Akita's escape-proof design has one fatal flaw that only someone who thinks like water, always finding the lowest point, would notice. What kind of man studies fluid dynamics in solitary confinement? And how many times can you rebuild a lock in your mind before you understand its weakness better than its maker? Akita Prison Cell 5 stands 15 feet tall with walls of polished copper that reflect your own terrified face back at you from every angle. No handholds, no rough edges. The architect, Yamada Koji, designed it after studying Houdini's escapes. Eliminate friction, and you eliminate hope. 1941, November, Yoshie Shiratori arrives weighing 132 pounds. 6 months later, he weighs 108. The handcuffs never come off, not even when he defecates. His wrists develop permanent grooves where the metal sits. Guards make him sleep with his arms crossed, shoulders dislocating if he rolls over. They want him to beg. He counts ceiling bolts instead, 47 total, arranged in a pattern that reminds him of the constellation Orion. The skylight vent sits 13 feet up, protected by iron bars set in rotting wood. Yoshie notices the wood first. During summer humidity, it expands. During winter freezes, it contracts. Each cycle weakens it by approximately 1 millimeter. He calculates he needs 180 cycles. That's 6 months if he can accelerate the process. So every night, after slipping his skeletal hands from the cuffs, a trick that costs him most of the skin on his thumbs, he becomes something inhuman. Back pressed against one wall, feet against the opposite, he climbs. The copper should be impossible to scale, but Yoshie's spine creates just enough pressure to hold, reaching the vent. Using spit and palm sweat, he moistens the wooden frame during summer, accelerating rot. Using fingernails, he loosens each screw by a quarter turn per week. Invisible to inspection, but cumulative over months. The guards below play cards, discussing the war, never looking up. Why would they? No one can climb polished copper. It's physically impossible. On June 14, 1942, a summer typhoon hammers Akita with 70-mile-per-hour winds. Rain floods the corridors. Thunder shakes the walls. At 2:15 a.m., between lightning strikes, Yoshie makes his move. The wooden frame tears free with the sound of a snapping femur, masked by thunder. Yoshie forces his body through an opening designed for ventilation pipes, not humans. His shoulders dislocate. He keeps going. His ribcage compresses until breathing becomes impossible, but he keeps going. On the roof, rain hits like frozen needles. He's naked except for a loincloth. Clothes would have made him too thick for the vent. The searchlight sweeps past, missing him by 3 feet. He drops from the wall, landing wrong, and fractures his left ankle. For 16 miles, he runs on that broken bone, leaving bloody footprints that the rain washes away before dawn. 3 months of freedom end when 2 farmers find him unconscious in a cabbage field, dying from infection. This time, the authorities don't just want him contained. They want him to freeze to death slowly. Abashiri prison, they promise, will be his tomb. Built on Hokkaido's northern coast where winter temperatures hit -30 Fahrenheit, it's where Japan sends men to disappear. What the guards don't realize is that extreme cold makes metal brittle, especially the low-grade steel Japan uses during wartime shortages. What temperature does poor-quality steel lose half its tensile strength? And how would a desperate man test this without tools? The train to Abashiri takes 6 days. Yoshie rides in a cage designed for transporting bears, surrounded by 8 guards who take shifts watching him. One guard, Private Ito, is 17 years old. The boy never forgets this. 40 years later, as a prison reform advocate, Ito will credit this moment with changing his life. But that's the future. Right now, Yoshie is entering hell. Abashiri prison exists where the Sea of Okhotsk meets the mountain wilderness, a location chosen specifically because even if you escape, nature kills you within hours. The walls are 18 feet high, made from Hokkaido granite. Guard towers every 30 yards, dogs trained to track in blizzards. Yoshie's new cell has one additional feature. Every surface is coated in whale oil that never freezes, making it impossible to grip even with fingernails. Warden Yamashita personally inspects the cell, running his hand along every inch. Winter arrives in October. Ice forms inside the cell. Yoshie's breath crystallizes and falls like snow. The guards give him no blanket until December, which is the standard procedure for escape risks. His body starts eating itself to survive. But cold does something interesting to metal. It makes it contract. The food slot in Yoshie's door, a rectangle of steel 4 inches by 12 inches, shrinks by exactly 3 millimeters in extreme cold. 3 millimeters is nothing. Unless you've spent 6 months dislocating your joints every night, training your body to compress in ways that would make contortionists vomit. Unless you've studied how the traditional Japanese art of bone folding, used by ninja to hide in impossibly small spaces, actually works. Yoshie begins with his shoulders. The pain would knock most men unconscious. But Yoshie learned to dislocate joints at age 15 when debt collectors broke his arms, and he had to reset them himself. Next, his collarbones. He presses them down and in until they overlap behind his sternum. His ribcage is harder. Using the wall, he compresses his chest cavity until his lungs can barely hold air. Spine curved to an impossible angle. Hips rotated until ligaments scream. On November 3rd, 1944, the temperature hits -31 Fahrenheit. The food slot has contracted its maximum. Yoshie has fasted for 5 days to shrink his stomach. He's ready. He introduces the head first through the slot and the shoulders next, bones grinding against steel. The slot is so tight that exhaling is the only way to advance another inch. It takes 20 minutes of this torture. Then, something tears in his hip socket, a sound like ripping canvas. He's through. He drops to the corridor floor, a grotesque collection of dislocated bones and torn muscle. Resetting his shoulders takes 4 attempts and walking is impossible. He crawls. The corridor guard, Private Suzuki, is smoking in the bathroom, a dereliction that will cost him his career. Yoshie reaches the fence as dawn approaches. The miso soup he'd been saving for weeks, now frozen solid, becomes his tool. He heats it with friction, rubbing it between his palms until it liquefies. Poured on the fence bolts in -30 weather, it expands the metal just enough, making the bolt crack and opening the fence. Yoshie crawls into the Hokkaido wilderness wearing prisoner rags, leaving a blood trail in fresh snow. Why didn't the dogs track him? And what made seasoned guards overlook a blood trail in white snow? The police find Yoshie 6 months later hiding in an abandoned mine shaft, living on rats and melted snow. He doesn't resist arrest. His hip never healed properly. He'll limp forever. Tokyo District Court sentences him to death for the embarrassment he's caused Japan's prison system. The year is 1947 and the war is over. Japan is occupied. Everything is changing except Yoshie's situation. Sapporo Prison's death row is where condemned men wait to hang. But Yoshie Shiratori doesn't wait for it. The floor is wooden planks over dirt, thanks to the budget constraints during post-war reconstruction. The guards, mostly war veterans with missing limbs or PTSD, follow predictable routines born from military training. They check cells every hour until midnight, then every 2 hours until dawn. They never check floors because why would they? Previous escapes went up or out, never down. But Yoshie has a soup bowl made from ceramic, not sharp enough to cut, but rough enough to scrape. For 2 months, he works that chip against the floorboards, creating a groove. The groove becomes a gap. Then the gap becomes a hole. Digging is mathematics. The human body produces approximately 2 cups of urine daily. Urine softens dirt, and softened dirt compresses better, so compressed dirt takes less space to hide. Yoshie digs at night, hides dirt in his mattress by day. The mattress grows imperceptibly thicker, and the guards assume he's hoarding food. They search for contraband but find nothing. Below their feet, a tunnel extends 1 foot per week. But the walls need support or they'll collapse. Yoshie uses his own feces mixed with straw from his mattress to create primitive concrete. The smell is horrific, but the guards assume it's the death row latrine backing up again. After 3 months, the tunnel extends beyond the prison wall. But Yoshie faces a problem. He's hit groundwater. The tunnel floods. Digging deeper is impossible. So he digs up at a 40-degree angle, an engineering calculation based on soil density and water table depth. On March 31st, 1947, he breaks through to the surface in the prison vegetable garden. The same garden where prisoners grow food for the guards' mess hall. The irony isn't lost on him. He emerges at 3 a.m., caked in mud and human waste, looking like something from a nightmare. The guard tower searchlight is broken, has been for 3 weeks, awaiting parts from Tokyo. Yoshie walks out the main gate, which isn't locked because who expects someone to escape from inside the compound? Freedom lasts exactly 1 year. During this time, Yoshie commits no crimes. He works as a day laborer under false names, sends anonymous money to his daughter, and lives quietly. On May 5, 1948, he sits on a bench in Maruyama Park, watching salarymen hurry to work. Police officer Kobayashi, walking his beat, offers this homeless-looking man a cigarette. It's an American brand, Lucky Strikes, valuable in occupied Japan. The kindness breaks something in Yoshie. Or maybe it fixes something. He takes the cigarette, lights it, inhales once and says, "I'm Yoshie Shiratori. I escaped from Sapporo prison last year. Why did Japan's greatest escape artist surrender to a beat cop? And what did he gain by giving up what he'd sacrificed everything to achieve?" Officer Kobayashi nearly drops his nightstick. He's heard of Yoshie Shiratori, every cop in Japan has. The man who humiliated 4 prisons. The ghost who crawled through a food slot. The phantom who dug his way out of death row with a soup bowl. Kobayashi expects violence, resistance, another escape. Instead, Yoshie extends his wrists for cuffing. "I'm tired, officer, and you were kind." The arrest report, filed at 9:47 a.m., notes the suspect surrendered voluntarily and requested no special treatment except 1 cigarette for the road. The High Court of Sapporo convenes on June 18, 1948. The courtroom overflows with journalists, citizens, and prison officials who want to see Yoshie hang. But Japan's justice system is under American oversight now, subject to new standards of human rights. Yoshie's lawyer, appointed by the occupation forces, presents evidence that shocks the court. Medical records showing systematic torture. Photographs of wounds consistent with prolonged restraint. Testimony from Private Ito, now discharged, who describes guards betting on how long prisoners could survive in freezing cells. The farmer Yoshie allegedly murdered? Court documents reveal he attacked first with a sickle, nearly severing Yoshie's hand. The killing was self-defense during a botched robbery Yoshie committed to feed his family during the 1933 famine. Judge Yamamoto, the same man who sentenced Yoshie to death, reads the verdict with visible discomfort. He overturns his death sentence and changes his murder charge to manslaughter, time served. The 4 escapes remain criminal acts, but the court acknowledges extraordinary circumstances of inhumane treatment that no Japanese citizen should endure. His new sentence is 20 years, eligible for parole in 14. The prosecution erupts in protest. The defense sits stunned. Yoshie speaks only once. "I request to serve my time in Tokyo's Fuchu prison, where they treat men like men." Fuchu prison, 1948 to 1961. 13 years without a single disciplinary infraction. Yoshie teaches literacy to younger inmates, tends the prison garden, repairs watches for guards. Those steady hands that once picked locks now fix timepieces. Warden Tanaka writes in his final report, "Prisoner Shiratori demonstrated that brutal treatment creates desperate men, while dignity creates citizens." On August 10, 1961, Yoshie walks out Fuchu's front gate, age 54, legally free for the first time since 1933. Reporters crowd around. He says only, "Prisons couldn't hold me, but kindness did."